What's up, guys? Jacob Ober here, coming to you with my instant reactions to Green Bay's 24-17 loss to the Chicago Bears in Week 15 of the NFL. This loss drops the Packers to a record of 5-8-1. They are, for the first time since 1990 and 1991, they are guaranteed to have 2 consecutive losing seasons. The Bears clinched the NFC North with the victory, and that's a wrap on the Green Bay Packers season. The Vikings won. The Packers lost today. That is it for the Packers this season. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a pretty year. It wasn't one that you're really going to remember very much, except for the miraculous comeback in Week 1, obviously. That'll always be one of my greatest Packers memories, I'd say. I mean, that was just amazing, beating the Bears like that. But the Bears got us today with the victory at Soldier Field, and you know, I can't say that I didn't expect it. The Bears are a better team than the Packers this year, and Week 1 was a long time ago, and they really did want to win this game, and they had a lot to play for. The Packers, however, had very faint playoff hopes coming into this game. You know, it felt like a game that was going to go in favor of Chicago, but the Packers, nonetheless, had plenty of opportunities to win this football game, and there's a lot of plays that, I mean, you just shake your head. I mean, the story of the Green Bay Packers this year, it's been, well, if this happened, or if they were able to do this or this, then the game would have ended up differently. You know, there's probably about 3 or 4 games that I would say the Packers should have won this year that could have flipped this season around, and to be honest with you, they could have anywhere from 8 to 10 wins right now, but things didn't go their way, and once again, things didn't go their way down the stretch. The Packers, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, this was one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. It really was, honestly. It might be up there as the worst game I've seen him play, at least since he's been considered an elite quarterback. This was an awful game from him. Playoff hopes on the line, got to win a game on the road. The guy was terrible today. He was terrible. I've never seen Aaron Rodgers this bad in my life. The throw to MVS to begin the fourth quarter, it was like a second or third down play, I think. Wide open. It would have been a touchdown. The game was tied 14-14. He misses him. He shoots him way long. And that was pretty much the game for Green Bay. I mean, they had to punt the ball after that, and then the Bears marched right down the field, got a touchdown, and that was pretty much it. Of course, the Packers did still have a sliver of hope when they were inside Bears territory. I believe they were like inside the 15 or the 10, and Rodgers hit Jimmy Graham over the middle. Ball went directly through his hands, tipped up, intercepted by Eddie Jackson, and that was the game for Green Bay pretty much. So, yeah, I mean, it's basketball season now, guys. Go Bucks, go Badgers. I mean, and go Brewers when spring starts. But I mean, this is one of the worst seasons of football I can remember. Packers were awful. Badgers were awful. These are 2 teams that came into the season with pretty high aspirations, I'd say. I mean, I'm not going to say that the Packers were expected to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but they were expected to compete for the division title, make the playoffs like they usually do. They had Aaron Rodgers back and healthy. At least for most of the season, I think Aaron Rodgers was healthy. But and then the Badgers obviously came in as preseason number 4 team in the country. Ended up going 7-5. Now they're playing in the Dirt Bowl in New York or something. I don't know. I mean, it's just been a terrible year for football for Green Bay and Wisconsin as a whole. And I mean, I guess I might take it with how good the Brewers have been and how good the Bucks are, and the Badgers having a pretty good year thus far in basketball. But, I mean, the story of this season for the Green Bay Packers, I mean, you look back, the Vikings game, Clay Matthews, if he doesn't get called for that penalty, Packers are 7-7 right now, and they still have a chance right now. That's just one game. Then you go back and you look at the Ty Montgomery fumble and blowing that game against the Rams. That's another loss that should have been a win. You look back at the Detroit game when Mason Crosby went 0 for 4 on field goals. Packers should have won that game. If he makes all 4 of those field goals, they win the game. And then you look back on the New England game, Aaron Jones fumbling the football inside New England territory, and that pretty much ended that game for Green Bay. But I mean, there's just so many examples of that this year, and every week I feel like I'm saying the same thing. If the Packers did this, if the Packers did that, if they didn't commit this turnover, if they didn't do this stupid play, it's just been a season full of ifs. And that's the story of this team. That's the story of this 2018 Green Bay Packers team. If they were able to make the crucial plays in the crucial moments, they probably have a much different record, and we're talking about a much different team right now. And for as much as Aaron Rodgers has struggled this year, and he has been not nearly the player that we expected him to be this year after that big payday, he hasn't been the majority of the blame this year. I don't think he deserves the majority of the blame. For this game, however, for the Bears game, I'm blaming, for the most part, Aaron Rodgers for this one, because he was terrible in this game. But for the season as a whole, I can't blame Aaron Rodgers for it, at least not that much. He's a part of the problem. He was a part of the problem, but the main problem was, I think, the coaching staff. They got rid of McCarthy, which is good. But, I mean, it was just like a lack of execution, especially in critical moments. They just couldn't close games out very well, except for the first one against the Bears to open up the season. It's just a bad season overall, and hopefully we can move on and forget this season as quickly as possible, and hopefully the Packers this offseason make the necessary moves, the right moves, to put this direction on a positive course, or put this franchise on a positive course, and maybe retool and get back to contention status. And I still think that an Aaron Rodgers-led team will compete for a Super Bowl at some point in the next 5 or 6 years when Aaron Rodgers' contract is finally up, when he's 40 years old. I do believe in that period of time the Packers will have chances to compete for a Super Bowl again. That being said, I don't think they will get to that point unless they have a good offseason this year. They have to make the right moves this season, or this offseason, I should say. If they don't, I mean, you're putting yourself in jeopardy of having Aaron Rodgers retire with only one ring to show for it. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback talent of all time. I don't think he'll ever be as good as he was in his MVP years a couple years ago, but you still have the chance to build a team around him, to put a system in place that allows him to have as much success as possible, and to build up that defense to have it become at least a top 10, 15 unit, if it isn't already, actually. It's actually been pretty good this year. In fact, if I think you put this defensive unit on the 2016 Green Bay Packers team, they might make the Super Bowl. They might beat Atlanta, because I think that Atlanta game was all about having Ladarius Gunter being covering Julio Jones, having ridiculous matchups like that. If you took that defense and put it on that team, or really any one of these teams in the past couple of years for Green Bay, the Packers might be legitimate, they legitimately might have made the Super Bowl, because their defense has almost always been the Achilles heel of the team. But, that being said, you have the pieces in place. You have a lot of the pieces in place, actually. The team just needs to allow itself to grow a little bit, and they need a new coach who can help guide them in the right direction. And if you don't make the right hire this offseason, well then, if it takes 2 to 3 years before you realize it wasn't the right hire, then, well, that's another 3 years of Aaron Rodgers wasted. And now, looky here, you only have 2 to 3 more years of Aaron Rodgers to make it right. So, that's why this offseason is so important for Green Bay and the franchise. If they cannot make the right moves this offseason, they are putting their franchise in serious jeopardy of being a very mediocre to bottom-of-the-barrel team for the next 5 to 10 years. So, they got to make the right moves this offseason. Obviously, a very disappointing year, but there's still hope in Green Bay. There's still life. There's still a beating heart. The fact that they got rid of McCarthy is really good. I like that. And the fact that they have a lot of young pieces around on this team is also very encouraging. I hope they keep Mike Pettin as defensive coordinator. I really like what he's done with this young defensive group, and I really hope that he gets multiple years with them, because I think that this defense is, I mean, there are places where they definitely need to improve. Pass rush, safety, etc. They need to improve in areas like that. But the way that Mike Pettin has gotten this defense to be top 10, 15 in the league this year with all these young players, it's impressive, and I like what he's done with the team and the defense. So I think that they should keep him on. I think they should draft some, they should draft an edge rusher or maybe safety help in the first couple of rounds this season in the draft. Maybe go out and look and test the waters for free agency, so see what's out there for those areas of your football team. But I like what the Packers have in place right now. I like their young offensive cornerstones and defensive cornerstones. Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams on offense, Jair Alexander, Kenny Clark on defense. I like what they have there, but They got to make it all work, and this offseason is so important for them. So, anyways, guys, though, that's all I have to say today. I'll be going way more in depth on the Packers offseason in future videos, but for today, the Packers, unfortunately, their playoff hopes are over. The season is pretty much over. 5-8-1 is their record now after the 24-17 loss to the Bears. And credit to the Bears for having such a tremendous year this year. I mean, their team has been at the bottom of the barrel for quite some time as well. And Aaron Rodgers and the Packers have owned them for quite some time as well. So, I mean, they deserve at least some sort of success, and they are getting that this year. And they're going to be a thorn in the side of Green Bay for a while now, I think. I think these two teams are going to have a very renewed rivalry over the next few years, especially if Green Bay is able to get back into contender status. But until next season, guys, or until the next game anyway, as the Packers go to New York to face the Jets next week, I will be doing instant reactions on that, of course. But until then, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And as always, go Pack, go.